Hey guys, here it's Drobium77 again. Well, I'm doing this little video. I'm going to attempt to show you how to change some brake pads, albeit on an older bike. Mine, I've noticed, have been getting quite faded feeling of late, and also there's a squeakiness which is quite annoying, which is sort of, well, more of a squealing really when you pull the brakes. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap the old pads for these, which I've just bought from the nearest bike shop. As you can see, they're expensive, £23.98, so that'll be about $38 to $40 maybe. I don't know what the exchange rate is at the minute, but they're bloody expensive anyway. But hopefully I'll be able to get these out without too much of a struggle. There's bound to be some pins or something that are seized in. They usually are. Okay, right, so that'll be... Hey guys, here it's Drobium77 again. Well, I'm doing this little video. I'm going to attempt to show you how to change some brake pads, albeit on an older bike. Mine, I've noticed, have been getting quite faded feeling of late, and also there's a squeakiness which is quite annoying, which is sort of, well, more of a squealing really when you pull the brakes. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap the old pads for these, which I've just bought from the nearest bike shop. As you can see, they're expensive, £23.98, so that'll be about $38 to $40 maybe. I don't know what the exchange rate is at the minute, but they're bloody expensive anyway. But hopefully I'll be able to get these out without too much of a struggle. There's bound to be some pins or something that are seized in. They usually are. Okay, right, so that'll be... So what I'm going to do first is unscrew this screw here, which is a little dust cap. That'll allow me to get underneath to the there we go, to the screw that's underneath there, which hopefully just about holds the pins in, the brake pads rather. Then hopefully I can just loosen the caliper up and everything should slip out pretty easily. Now, I have loosened these beforehand, before you're wondering. So here comes one of the pins. Always get a tub or something to put these kind of things in, like an old margarine or ice cream tub, something like that. There's a pin. Now in theory the brake pad should just slip straight out, so sometimes you have to take the caliper off. There's one. There we go. You see, they're not actually all worn down to the line. There's a line here in the middle, this line here, and if you look at it side on there, if that line's still showing, there's usually a little bit of life left in the pads. Right, hey guys, back again, Drobium77 again. Right, so what I've done now is I've taken these off the back of the old pads. Now this one in here is quite an important one. It's called the anti-squeal pad, and what happens is this sits behind the old behind the brake pad itself, and in between the carrier, which is this thing. So it sits in there like that, and it stops it's supposed to be allowed to move freely around, and that absorbs, if you brake really hard, sometimes it can set up a resonation within the brake itself, which makes it squeal. And this if it's all gummed up underneath with old brake dust and what have you, then it can't do its job. So what you have to do is make sure that that's really thoroughly cleaned. The other thing that you can do as well, which I'll show you in a minute, is you can put some special anti sort of chatter grease on the back of here. I've got some actual silicone grease, which is this stuff here. I don't know if you can read that. That is really high temperature. It's recommended by the bike shop, which is Alf England in Bedworth, which was voted the best motorcycle shop in Britain at one point, so I think they do know what they're doing. But this goes onto the back of here in a very thin layer just behind the brake pad itself, and that helps to stick the anti-squeal shim to the back. Right, so as you can see, I've just opened my new packet of brake pads. I'll show you the old ones in comparison. There's the old one, there's the new one. You can see if I hold them to the side, the difference in thickness is at least twice as much, well, there's about twice as much thickness in the new ones as the old ones. And as you can see, there's the line down the middle, which if it gets quite low or you can't see it anymore, you know you need to change pads, although you probably need to change your underwear by then because your brakes won't work. But let's have a look. So this is, there you go, the anti-squeal pad there, and this fits into there like that, like so. The line that lines up with the holes there. But as I say, what I need to do first is put a layer of very, very thin, barely noticeable silicone grease on the back of here, just to help this stick to this basically. Right, so I've got my grease, took the lid off, squeeze a tiny little blibbly bit out the end there. Blibbly bit being a technical term for whatever. Get your anti-squeal pad there and just spread it on really thinly so there's no blobs or anything. Not almost to the edges but not quite, and then you want a bit at the top here just around that loop. Then you get make sure your hands are clean when you're handling the brake pads too. You get your brake pad there, like so, and then that should quite happily stick to the back of there. And as you can see, it's prevented the anti-squeal pad from moving as much on the back of the disc, the brake pad rather. Now the problem you're going to have now, well, what you do need as well, is on the back of here, when the brake pistons actually meet the back of the brake pad, you'll see there's like two, there we go, indentations where the outside of the pistons meet the back of here. You can put a little tiny bit of grease on the back of there too, just a little bit, and that helps stopping it corrode, and it helps stop the brake pads from sticking to the back of the piston itself. What you don't want is any of this grease on the actual brake pads themselves, otherwise you're going to be back to square one with the braking. Right then, so what I'm doing now is I'm attempting to get this brake pad back into here. Now this can be a tricky bit, probably not for the one side. Now this side's gone in fine. There we go. When you get the other side in, because the brake pads are slightly worn, they've probably the calipers are probably squeezed in a little bit tighter. So sometimes you need to take the caliper off itself and get a G-clamp and just screw it back in, so you can actually push the pistons back in to get enough room to actually get this brake pad back in. Hopefully we're not going to have to do that, but I won't know until I try to get the second brake pad in there, which I'll do in a second. Right, so I'm going to attempt to get the second pad in here now. This is a bit where it usually goes to pot, so make sure it's facing the right way. It should be in line with the disc here, so you can see the curvature of it. Now hopefully, with a little bit of luck, it will push in. And right, this is what, as I say, where the difficulty lies. So that's not going to push in easily. So what I'm just going to do is take hang on, I'll show you in a second. It's a bit of hassle, but I'm going to take this bolt. Right, so as it's an old bike, nothing's ever goes to plan, so I'm going to have to take the caliper off and push the brake pads back in. Another big tip is never ever touch the brake lever while you're changing the pads, because if you do that, if you push the brake lever in accidentally, what it does is it pushes the calipers out, and because there's nothing to stop them, there's no brake pads there at the time, they can actually fall out the sides of the barrels, and first of all that will do is make it a big pain in the backside to get them back in again, and secondly it'll cover the bottom of your bike, the rims of your wheels and everything with brake fluid, which will strip the paint off. So that's what you don't want to do. So I'm loosening these two bolts here, which luckily somebody's put copper slip on before, so they're not seized in, and hopefully this will work. It usually works. Not everything goes wrong. Hopefully I'll be able to get it off the disc enough. So let's get it. There we go. Right. So in here we have, as you can see, that's the piston there, and this is another piston here. It's a bit grimy in there. I'm going to have to clean these at a later date. Right, so what you have to do is get one of these, which is a G-clamp. Let me show you. That's a G-clamp, and what I'm going to have to do is to squeeze the calipers back in. So what you need to do is get a bit of cardboard or something on the back of the caliper here, so it doesn't damage the back of it. Luckily I've got the old brake pad thing here. Then I'm going to squeeze the calipers back in with this, which should work reasonably well. Right, so as you can see, I've pushed the calipers back in flush against the inside of here, so that will give me a lot more room to be able to just slide the pad straight in. As I say, nothing, always bank on having a lot of time to spend on this kind of thing, because it never takes 5 minutes. It's always a long drawn out thing, especially when the bike's as old as this, which is 20 years old. So right, okay, so now we've done that, we've got the things back in, we can have a go at getting these brake pads in, and hopefully this should go in a heck of a lot easier. Right, let's start with this one, which is the far one. There we go, go straight in. There we go, that's that one in. Right, you may need to hold these in, especially when they're now loose. And when the second one goes in, whoops, not the camera. There we go, so they're both in. Now what you need to do next is get this pin, which is this. This goes through there and holds those two pads in place. It's like a quick release mechanism thing. Now this needs to be thoroughly clean as well. I've just forgotten to do that, so I'm going to have to go switch the video off and go and quickly clean it and then put it back in. Right, so they're now happily back in. I've screwed this back all the way in, which holds the two pins, as I say, in place there, and stops them from falling out, because literally there should be almost quick release. They should just drop out. You should be able to just change them, pull them straight out, put the new ones in. Should be about a 10-minute job, but as I say, when bikes are this old, they tend to take twice as long to do anything, if not more. Also, as I forgot to mention before, the pin that holds these two in needs to have a bit of grease on it as well. Not a huge amount, because you don't want it flicking off onto the disc. or anything like that, but it needs to have enough, because these two bits of the brake caliper here slide when the brake's applied, and it slides along those pins, and if they're gunked up or they got a bit of corrosion, it doesn't allow the pins to slide properly, and that can cause squeals, or it can cause brake seizures. It's all exposed to the air on this one, and the water and everything, which is bad as well. On the end of here, this little cap needs to have a bit of grease put onto the top of it as well, just to stop water getting into there. Because it's Japanese, it tends to be pretty easy to thread these if you hit it too hard with an impact driver or what have you. But they are inclined to seizing in, so you do need to make sure there's a little bit of grease over there just to stop the water getting in. And that's it. And then next thing you need to do is just pump your brakes until you feel the feel come back again. Another thing about new brake pads is you don't want to sort of dive straight onto the road with them and then start riding at 100 miles an hour and then expect to stop even as well as you did before initially. There's usually a bit of a coating or something on new brake pads which needs to be sort of worn away. Also on your disc, everyone's got like little grooves on the disc here, which the brake pads need to settle into. So at the minute they'll just be riding along the top of it, but as the brake pads wear, they'll all wear into these little, you'll see them on your disc, they're like little, it's a bit like a record on a record player, the little indentations, little grooves, and once the brake pad settles into those, then it'll start to really bite well. But as I say, just take it easy on them for about the first 15 to 20 miles, and then thereafter just be a little bit more cautious than usual. They're usually bedded in after about 50 or 60 miles. But well, I hope that helps you. If you got any questions, post them on the YouTube comments below. And thanks for watching. Right, the other thing about old bikes is things tend to be missing. And what I didn't realise, because I haven't got a manual for this bike, is that after I did these brake pads, there's a little tang here that must be something to do with stopping the brake pads from chattering too much, or something to do with their ease of removal or install or something. Installing. So now I'm going to have to look for one of these on eBay, but it probably serves me right for doing this without a manual. Although I've done it so many times, I should have known better, to be honest. But there you go.